Hello and welcome to Sim Strategy Gaming. I'm Sim. This episode will be about the first chapter of the campaign of Railway Empire 2. Looking at our mission objectives, we see that we are going to deliver first 8 loads of lumber, then 8 loads of sugar to Boston, transport 320 passengers without changing trains from Boston to Portland, and then reach 25,000 citizens in Boston. And we are going to achieve this by building what I would refer to as economic zones, the first of which being this circular path around Portland, Boston, Albany, which I will refer to as the New England zone. You might notice that there isn't really any demand for coal yet here at Pastors, and there is certainly a high incline here that will slow down the trains. But nevertheless, I find these circular paths particularly useful, at least when it comes to setting up the warehouses. And also that if one builds a too long line from Bangor, Portland, Boston, New York, Albany, Syracuse, further on to Buffalo, London, this becomes in many ways too long, and there will be problems, first of all, with setting up the warehouses, and then second of all, that the train logic seems to be fluctuating in a peculiar way, making for maintenance breakdowns and other problems that will reduce our income. It's important to notice that when we are connecting to New York, that we are also taking advantage of our competitors' network. So we can see that people now in Boston, they can go via New York City to not only Albany and Syracuse, but further on to Washington, Charlottesville, and so on, so that we are now taking advantage of our competitors' network. Of course, this means that our competitor will take advantage of our network too, but we are aiming at building a much better railway network system than our competitor and making more money. And further on, we will buy up our competitor, and then we're going to need the extra income. We haven't yet set up any warehouses, at least in the beginning, because we would be having to expand. It would be beneficial to expand our rails as much as possible, not adding too many trains either. This will come on later as we have the connection bonuses coming in. We can bump this up, and we can also then build the warehouses and the maintenance depots that are required. See how we're going to do this. See that we in Syracuse we have beer, and also in Albany, so beer is not needed in Syracuse. But we don't have any wheat here in this New England zone. So what we are going to do is to put in wheat and corn, lumber, meat, not beer. Oh, actually we can have beer as well, to have both beer coming from Albany and Syracuse. Sugar, should perhaps have cloth too, but then we sort of run out of room in the warehouse. Might take away the beer and then rather have cloth. And then we can do the same here, as also this little Bangor line is connected to the New England zone, Bangor producing cloth. And sugar would be a dangerous one, because there would be sugar on both sides, and that creates for perhaps a problem, perhaps not immediately, but if demand is filled up now in Bangor from this sugar resource here in Glow, then the sugar will be transported into the New England zone. But then if demand drops a bit, and all of this being filled up, then the Norris sugar will try to fill up Bangor. And then simultaneously, Glow might try to fill up on Boston, and then there will be a crisscrossing tendency, which one can see at here now, that it's going in both directions. And then this might result at some point in there becoming a warning triangle here, and that will in many ways break down our network and have to be amended for. So they also have to take really good care of this and watch for the triangles, and perhaps not have it at all. Rather have beer, perhaps, since beer will be needed in Bangor. So we can see now how the warehouses are functioning. That distributes very nicely from this single wheat resource here in between Syracuse and Albany, and then all the way to the New England zone, and then further on to Bangor. Haven't really connected the corn yet, but with the connection bonuses that we had coming in, we can expand this further on and then have corn as well. Lumber coming from 2 places within the New England zone, being redistributed through Albany to Syracuse, and then also from Portland to Bangor. Meat going nicely in all directions. Now there is double here for the meat, which is okay. There wouldn't be any conflicts arising from this. Beer also nicely. Albany would never fill up Syracuse because Syracuse is always full, so this will be nice. Sugar. This sugar resource only filling up these 2 little cities, soon to be growing big. And then actually there are 2 cloth weaveries, and then this would not create for a crisscrossing bad tendency, even though that this cloth would be aiming also for Bangor, and Bangor will be going back. It's the same with the beer in Syracuse and Albany, because there wouldn't be any tendency of filling up cloth in Bangor, because Bangor is producing cloth itself, and there wouldn't be any tendency of filling up Syracuse, because Syracuse is producing beer. Might be a little complicated, this, and we'll come back to this further in our tutorials, but I think at least it's very important to be paying heed to the warehouse mechanics. This might seem a little off, but by building these zones and taking care that one doesn't have crisscrossing tendencies, like if we were to put not to have this, as long as you don't have this, then it will be perfectly well. Here there is a wool resource that is only going into Bangor. There's no need to have this on a redistributed line. We have wool for New York coming, that is on the main line, but there wasn't any problem, and it sort of could be picked up by one train station that also picks up lumber. So then one can certainly have this, say, dedicated resources that only goes into factories on the main line if there isn't any problem, and this solution being cheaper. But it isn't necessary. So then if one can get away with only building a single line for a single train, then this will more than suffice. Actually, one of the smallest trains, one of the little grasshoppers, will be more than enough. So it might be good to have to ensure that it's full all the way, that it has a minimum of 8 wagons, and that it only goes straight into Bangor. No need for a warehouse here to take that further, but certainly a maintenance depot will be good, and perhaps even building a post office or a restaurant when we have money for it. First of all, we are going to expand further on. As we start out, I would very much recommend that one starts the trains in the connection bonuses. There used to be connection bonuses here, and then was also one in Franklin in particular. And to deliver the lumber to Boston, I made for a particular dedicated transport that goes on the main net. But this would now block up traffic, and we're standing here waiting or going back and forth with empty wagons. So as we achieve the mission objective, it might be better to just delete this, and then to rely mostly on having say main transport lines and increasing this, going in both directions, so that we can have a more natural flow. This one as well was also started in a particular connection bonus, also in Franklin, and then it might now be deleted, or we can also just keep it there. But to have these trains going through a path, including all the stops, so that there wouldn't be too long hauls. Might notice that we have skipped on a few resources, like the fruit here, and there's also some milk, and then there is some vegetables, all included in the free concession zones that we started with. We started with this New York zone and also the New England zone here. But as we look at the flow of goods, we can see that the demand for both fruit, vegetables, and milk is only in New York, and New York is already getting some from our competitor. So this wouldn't be very profitable until we are able to reach a higher population in, say, our cities. Now, New York is a shared city, and these other cities doesn't belong to our competitor, so it will be good for us to grow them as well. But first of all, focus on the cities that are solely on our network. A quick look at the trains, using the John Bull for this general lines, and the Grasshopper for the more dedicated only resource line. Later on we will reach the Dunham, being superior mixed train, and then preferably using mixed trains for as much as possible, as we will pick up both express goods and freight goods on all our stations. Now, a few months later, we have achieved the mission objectives that we set out to do. Take a little bit time to grow Boston, but this nice circular zone and in between these two lines would ensure that it has most of the resources that it's demanding, most of them at least. No corn yet, which we're going to focus on now, but growing pretty steadily. Further on, we are going to transport lots of passengers. This will also come on very nicely, and then grow Albany we'll see now how we have been achieving the flow of goods there. Lots of wheat here in the middle zone on this line, and all of it being transported through warehouses through the New England zone and then up to Bangor. Corn is also now reaching Boston, but it is going to take a long time to fill up all of these other cities in between. And we can see now that production is lower than demand, meaning that in practice we will never be able to fill Boston. So we have to do something else there, which might include building an extra line underneath these zones going directly to the corn resource, and then also further on to Buffalo, as we are going to pick up an express status here later on. We can see now that in London is sort of hooked on to this. I could have made this line all the way into London, going through Toronto in some way, but then I want to build a new circle here, going to Ottawa, having a southern Ontario economic zone, and then to hook London onto Toronto, and then build a warehouse here, maintenance depot. Maintenance depots are absolutely great, allowing for more trains to be on the tracks without clogging up if one has spread out all over. We can see that London only has it's producing cloth and it's getting meat, but the rest of the resources we will have to get to it from a warehouse. So one can put this up like this. All of these are coming in to London, and then we are exporting the cloth. So one can see now how this would work out. And that we now have an efficient distribution network. It's important not to have cloth in Albany, because that would make for a mess back and forth. London now serving everybody on this line, including Albany, and Albany being served from both sides. Now we can see how our zones are forming. We have the New England zone here that we started out with, and we have completed a new Ontario zone with London hooked onto the Ontario zone and Bangor hooked onto the onto the New England zone. And in between here, little line that goes from Albany to Syracuse. And we can see how the flow is moving on nicely from one zone to another without interflicting. Would have been tempting to have all of this wheat going all the way to Albany, but if we were to put up an extra warehouse here with wheat inside, there'll certainly be room for that, but that would make for this crisscrossing tendency, and that would be where this wheat resource between Albany and Syracuse would be trying to serve Toronto, while simultaneously the wheat resource close to Buffalo and Toronto would be trying to serving Albany, and then it would fill the warehouse up from both sides, which would make for a clash. So better to avoid it. One can have this on for a tiny bit of while, but as soon as fulfillment demand is fulfilled on one side, this might become a problem. Tempting to buy things at these auctions, but particularly with the professor's eloquent bonus, but still building rails in Railway Empire is particularly lucrative, and then to have everything focused on rail building, not buying any saboteurs or participating at auctions, and neither building up industries or buying them, leaves a lot of money for building rails, and fast expansion of the railway network is probably most lucrative. Looking at the mission objectives, we see that we are going to deliver the 8 loads of corn to Boston, and then also having express status between Albany and Buffalo. This is sort of contradictory to these zones that are in many ways small, and then having a long line from Boston, New York perhaps, Albany, Syracuse, Buffalo, back and forth. It would be difficult to set up warehouses now that aren't interflicting. So, but still we must achieve the mission objective. So we're going to build a rail underneath here, and that will both go to Buffalo and achieve the express status, and also pick up the corn. And now we have done just that and been able to achieve these 2 mission objectives. Still some time to go into growing Albany. It comes on nicely. 2 green arrows, 86% fulfillment of demand, and more coming in. We might actually be able to reach 100%, and with 100% it really is booming. This becomes exponential as the fulfillment of demand becomes higher. Then we'll be having a much greater growth. With 100% it grows almost 1,000 citizens in every little bump. So, but building this extra line here, going from Buffalo through Archer, Collins, White, New York, Norris, Boston, and then to have this, of course, have a regular line that goes back and forth and includes all the stops. That is, of course, important. That will be most lucrative, making us the money and growing the cities. But in addition to that line, we would also need to have a special line that starts out here in Archer and goes directly on to Boston with only corn, no wheat, and then a minimum of 8 wagons to make sure that we fulfill that goal. In addition to that, it would be very clever to have a super dedicated express line going straight from Buffalo to Boston, putting this on express. I only need 1 train. Not everybody needs to have express status. As soon as it has been achieved, then it's okay. Only 1 wagon and no freight wagons, so that it would be having maximum speed. This rail is going around here with Boston and such, and then we might actually, we never know with absolute certainty if we are going to achieve an express status on a line. So then make everything possible to us in order to have the fastest train. The fastest train will have only 1 wagon of express goods. And then as soon as this has gone back and forth, it will certainly now, I know for sure that it's going to achieve it should be a maximum of 1 train, not a minimum. But anyways, it is going to achieve the express status. Express good being way lighter than the heavy freight goods. And as soon as this has gone back and forth now, we are going to delete both the special express delivery from Boston to Buffalo and also the for freight special delivery. These aren't really particularly profitable. It is much more profitable to have this general mixed lines that pick up everything and grow our cities, but making that much from freight. Actually, we are making a lot from freight, but passengers and mailbags being the most profitable way of making money. But we will only have passengers from bigger cities, or more passengers from bigger cities, so that it's important to grow the cities. And as we grow the cities, we can expand our network. And now that we have achieved the previous set of mission objectives, we have removed the line underneath there, or rather we have included it, changed it into a 4-lane network, so that as our cities now are growing and the demand is much increasing, we can see this that has a consumption of 12 wagons a week, with all kind of different goods needed. It would be time now to have 4 of these tracks instead of just 2. One going in each direction. We can now have 2 going in each direction. And then one could have changed one of these into becoming a special dedicated passenger line with express, having only express goods. And now we can't add on these special wagons yet because we are so early in the game. That's why I haven't done that. So then, because of this, since we are in these early stages of the game, it might actually be better to have 4 sets of mixed trains going in each direction. Here in Albany and such, we could also have been building a hotel instead of a maintenance depot, but we haven't reached that tech yet. So then only later on, at some point, we will be able to reach the hotel technology. And when we do, we will add a hotel there for extra passengers. Passengers being more and more lucrative. We can see we have 3 great incomes: freight, passengers, and mailbags, and all of them being pretty much the same. But passengers and mailbags are going together would be much more than the freight. Sometimes it pays off to wait a little bit by connecting, not rapidly connecting to everything at once. So then we can see that sometimes they pop up a little extra connection bonus, 336,000 credits for being patient and waiting a little bit. And now, in addition to be expanding every one of our zones into becoming 4 lanes, we also done some adjustments to the rail infrastructure as well. Here there used to be a very high incline slowing our trains down a lot. But now with this new marvelous tunnel, trains are moving much faster than they used to be. Not really super fantastically fast with this very early John Bull trains. Hopefully we will soon reach the Dunham. That will speed up the traffic a bit. But still, most of our trains do have the express status. And one can always make for little improvements. Another improvement would be to split these stations into 2, particularly when one having these 2 zones, having the Ontario zone here, the New England zone, and then this, say, mid-zone in between, New York zone, perhaps could be called. And then it would be a little awkward, a little hard perhaps to put this together into all of them into one station. One could theoretically do it like this as well, have this in the middle somehow, and then force all of these tracks into one station, saving some money, as we don't need to have 2 warehouses and 2 maintenance depots. But then the track would be longer, and that would be a little bit more expensive, but one has to particularly note that one doesn't pay maintenance for the tracks themselves. One only pay maintenance for the train rides. And then this train ride, it becomes a little bit shorter as we have 2 stations. A little bit smoother. Smooth is also very important, so that the trains won't have to deaccelerate. And then it also makes for order, and order, and to have some vision of what one is going to build that isn't too complex and require ones to rebuild all the time, but to sort of build this zone up for itself, and then to build the other New England zone, and then to add the one in between, so one can clearly see what one is doing. Now at this stage we have included this Martin station that brings on the fruit. Isn't so much fruit being produced. It's kind of a small little factory, so then certainly one little grasshopper here will be more than enough. It has been waiting for quite some time to be full, but we don't want it to go back and forth with just a couple of wagons, because every trip costs money in supplies. But now that it is full, it is going to move along, and then it might be resupplied here. And as soon as Boston has its demand filled up, not on this track but on this, but soon it will be filled up, and then the surplus will go into the warehouse and be distributed from there until the rest of our empire, our railway empire. Not to Bangor, there isn't any demand here yet, I think, and even though there soon will be, I think we might have filled up our... Yes, this is already full, so that there isn't any room yet, but there will be more fruit coming here as soon as we complete Quebec, so the last zone in the northern part of the map, before we go down to our competitor and start messing with him. Very easy to forget these supply depots there. It isn't such a bad thing, and the game will warn you about this, so that but try to be careful to remember to build everything that is needed. Looking at the mission objectives, we connecting 3 resources of grain, absolutely no problem, and then transporting passengers from Syracuse. As it is a member of 2 zones, these passengers will flow in all directions, and they will be achieved very easily. And with Albany still having 2 arrows, oh wow, 102! I didn't know that was really possible to have more than 100% fulfillment on demand. I wonder how that happened, but clearly it's growing very well. So this will also be achieved very, very soon. Should perhaps now stop for a moment and consider looking at how this redistribution is working. First, the quarterly report. I always like having a look at them and see that things are steadily growing, and that we are becoming more than our competitor, way more. This way of zone thinking might sometimes contradict to the mission objectives. It might be hard to incorporate the mission objectives as well, but it certainly is making a lot of money and very little fuss on the rails. A few breakdowns, a few problems trains going just in one direction, one line in one direction, one line in the other direction, and not going back and forth and making for confusion and breakdowns. What say with flow of goods, how this is working? All the wheat here in southern Ontario being transported to London. This resource, which is much greater than the others, or at least this is really great because we own this. I bumped that up so that it can serve both the middle zone and New England that has no wheat. Corn, there's a corn resource up here that I'm really longing to buy. Perhaps even bump it up, whereas we can see that now it's only this one resource here that has grown quite nicely. It grows by itself. Private interest is not entirely dumb, and when the computer buys, sets up factories, this factory might be a little, I'm not sure that it's going to get its fruit. Sometimes the computer do a little funny things with buying factories, but they are free, and we're making a lot more money from transporting the goods than by owning factories. So that even though, of course, it would be better to own everything, then the computer is doing a decent job in bumping up rural businesses and buying factories and also bumping them up. But corn being redistributed all over the map from this single resource. Lumber, lots of lumber here in New England. Lumber, also one lumber resource in Ontario, and they're all going to the middle zone. So also Montreal is getting some. Meat, pretty evenly distributed on the map. One here in Toronto, two here in New England. So, but still, it's nice to have one. It's sometimes a little bit hard to see these warehouses that are on the rural stations, but one can certainly have warehouses on rural stations as well, and that we can now have extra meat coming into Montreal. Beer, all of these middle cities are producing beers and then sending them to New England, and enough in Ontario, and then further on to London. See how the sugar. Now I actually put up a sugar warehouse here that is going back and forth. I don't see that we have any conflicts yet. I'm quite sure why I did this, but that's one of the dangerous things, so that one had to look out that it wouldn't become a little yellow warning triangle as it goes both ways. But certainly we would like sugar to be flowing westward, as there is lots of sugar on the east coast, but no sugar here in the west. With the cloth, lots of cloth on the east coast, cloth in Toronto, and then the east coast cloth is supplying the middle zone. The milk, one can select the milk like this, only one milk, so then this milk should be distributed all over. But you can see we have a little bit less production per week than demand, so not all of the cities are filled up, and there is no particular point in trying to include Bangor and London on the further edges. Same with the vegetables, only one vegetable resource. We do have enough, but still demand will be growing faster than production, so we haven't included Bangor and London here as well. With fruit, much the same, but then it has to go all the way through all of these zones, and we can see that New England is pretty much fulfilled, but there isn't really much of a point in having these warehouses actually, because this only produce 1.2 wagons per week, while the demand is much greater than that. And so we have reached sufficient size here in Albany, finally, and be able to build our second university, New York being the first city to achieve university. We have been able to complete a full 4-lane zone here, so that Bangor is no longer just a little tentacle adding to the England zone, but being part of this independent zone that connects through Montreal to the middle zone and also to Portland and Pastor. And we have reached the hotel technology so that Pastor now properly serves as a passenger hub, a mail hub that can deliver much more passengers. We can see now how our revenues are booming, more than $1 million a week. That makes us pretty much capable of doing more or less whatever we choose. Notice now that I've made for this 3-station solution here in Montreal. One station belonging to this Quebec zone, and one for the middle states, and then one docking station in the middle. And this is in many ways orderly and nice. There are 4 resources coming into the dock, and not all of these resources are going to both of the zones. Say with milk, for example, it wouldn't be good now to have milk going into both. You don't need milk here in the middle. Only the milk should be going only to Quebec, and then so that here in this warehouse there are only fruit actually, while on the other there are milk, wheat and vegetables, and then it makes for a much clearer, nicer system, and we can see that things are not crisscrossing. Here with the wheat, for example, this wheat is only going to Quebec and not to the center. With all the money that we are making now, looking at our mission objectives for what to do next, having this express line from Boston to Philadelphia, going all Boston, New York, and then into our competitors' area. And then we would have to buy up this concession here, and we would also have to circumvent his rails and building for a much more expensive rail solution with bridges and perhaps tunnels. That would be much more expensive and also much more ineffective. We have to be really careful about the incline. Haven't reached the Dunham yet, so then with only 70% tractive power, that's not a lot. So it might be much better to just buy him up right away. We only are required at this stage to buy 3%, just a small portion of his company, but in buying a small percentage of his shares, we're actually giving him this money to further building his rails, and that would make for much more confusion. So then we have the opportunity to issue a really nice big loan, some interest here, but we are going to make a lot more money from the money that we are borrowing than the interest. So then just to hopefully, yes, we are able to buy him, and then we can see that we are paying 13.7 million, but we are getting a lot of this money back. He had 3.3 million in cash, and then I think we will be allowed to merge him, and then we're going to just liquidate everything, and that's going to give us 4.4 million. So we only spent 5 million, but we also were able to rid of all his infrastructure that are blocking us from building nice strikes. But also we got all these concessions for free, and that's a really nice thing. So it didn't cost us more than 2 millions, and those 2 millions would be very easily spent on building these bridges and tunnels required to circumvent his network. So then we in many ways better off just make a lot of money from particularly these nice zones that helps all the city come along. You can see now that we have only one city with 120 more cities, 120,000 citizens, but this will come on very nicely, very naturally from having these zones. Everybody, all the cities that are in between two zones grow on very nicely, having these two green arrows. Not quite Syracuse, but that's due to this sort of dumb liquor factory. Liquor is really hard to produce. Fruit is often very scarce, and that means that it might not grow that fast. Might have been better to buy this up and change it into something else, but it is expensive, and there are other ways to spend the money that will make more profit. But one thing that we need to buy is to have salt. Looking at salt, we are now, with all the big cities, we are having more and more great demand. In the beginning, salt is hardly useful at all, but then suddenly, as all of these cities start growing, all of them at some point will require salt, and then we should buy this. Kind of expensive, almost 3 million, and then we're going to bump it up with 3 million more. But now, at least, without making any special deliveries, we could have made a special delivery line here, circumventing Portland, Bangor, Boston, like we did with the corn resource. But Bangor and Portland isn't requiring salt yet. Portland will be requiring very soon. If we look at it now, it's not so, just a little bit more growth. 5.5 thousand more citizens, no, 10,000 more citizens than it will require. This might happen before one know it. It has two arrows and growing really fast, but still now with 4 lanes of trains, and this bumped up to level 4. Perhaps I should bump it up to level 5 just to be absolutely certain that it would reach all the way down to New York. There isn't any other salt resources, only this, and then I don't want them to be interflicting, so that there aren't any extra warehouse here in Albany, because that will make for perhaps a mess. And then I also think that these are quite full, these warehouses. They have there's a lot of need to transport goods from one economic zone to another. Quick look at how this Quebec zone is functioning. Let's see how Quebec is getting their needs fulfilled. Wheat coming in from Montreal, corn having a dedicated line, lumber belonging to the zone, meat being produced. We have beer coming in from Montreal that has sugar belonging to it. It's going to be a very, very good zone with most of the things belonging to the zone itself. That is always the best. But sometimes, like here with fashion clothing, they would need to be imported from a different zone through a warehouse. And now money has been rolling in really fast, almost reaching 2 million credits a week. haven't done so much more to change this original northern parts of the map. Still pretty much as they were almost half a year ago. But we have been able to say, first of all, complete this, let's call it the East Coast Express, long line, double line actually, going from Boston, New York, Philadelphia, Washington, Norfolk, to all the resources on the way that are directly on the path. And with this, we were able to achieve the express status that we had set out to make, and also delivering the salt to New York. In addition to this, we built this mid-Atlantic state zone here, Philadelphia, Syracuse now having 3 stations, belonging to 3 zones, are particularly nice. So this will very soon reach 120,000 citizens, already having a university. And then going on to Buffalo, Pittsburgh, Philadelphia, and then also Virginia zone, including both the North and West Virginia. Going from Washington, Pittsburgh, Parkersburg, Big Lick, and then leaving Norfolk a little bit outside. We could have made for a zone here, perhaps Charlottesville, Big Lick, Norfolk, but not everything needs to be circular, even though I have this particular fashion trend, this desire to build everything circular to make it look nice and orderly. I built this extra little line underneath here, Big Lick, Norfolk. Then I was into the mood and had so much money that I built it into a 4-lane track. But that made for too many trains. You can see that this one at least is running with a loss, and it's the other trains on the track are also having too little to do. We can reduce the number of trains, but that is also a bit awkward, because when I first built a nice line, I sort of wanted to have the maximum amount of trains on it, or else it will be a little wasteful. Here I only built 2 lanes, and then with a hotel here, so that people can sort of jump, switch trains through the hotel here at Evans and go from Charlottesville, Norfolk in an easier manner. Having a look at the mission objectives, we see that achieving this express status was absolutely no problem. The zones just have to be, even though they are circular zones, having often a harder time achieving the express status, but as long as they are compact and smooth and you take care of the incline, it shouldn't really be that much of a problem. You can see here most of these lines do have express statuses. Seem to be some problem up here. Might be too many trains. Some conflict. Have to take care of that later on. Might also be due to this gridirons being too close together, that this track is actually too small. We'll have to reduce the number of trains, or make the distance between the gridirons greater. But as we are now more or less completed our railway empire, we can have a quick look at the flow of goods. Wasn't any particular wheat down here. So then important to buy this wheat resource here in the mid-Atlantic states, which are now serving a lot of the cities down south, pretty much all of the cities down south, so then it needed to be bumped up in order to ensure that everybody gets their wheat. Corn, same, wasn't that much corn either. So then corn is serving Virginia, and then also Norfolk to a Big Lick warehouse in Big Lick. And then to put corn on this Atlantic Express, you have to choose one corn. We could have chosen this corn, or we could have chosen the Quebec corn here, both being pretty much the same distance from the actual line, but this resource is producing much less, only 3.2 wagons a week, while this is producing 16. So then this will have surplus to go all the way and serving most of the Northern Empire except for the Quebec zone, and then also hooking on to the Atlantic Express through New York, and actually several warehouses. Might be a little complicated reaching all the way, but we have a lot of trains now, and all of these circles do have four tracks. And then an addition here, so that London is no longer only connected to Toronto, but also connected to Buffalo. So it's more of a triangle here, but this would be two different lines like this. Lumber, how that's varying. We bought up this as well. When I have a lot of money, it's nice to buy them up, but don't buy too many resources before one has completed all the rails. Rails are more important usually if there isn't any particular mission objective. So we can see that this southern lumber is serving the southern parts, and then there is an extra lumber here that serves the mid-Atlantic, so that were very neatly and evenly distributed. You get some extra meat here from Norfolk, but otherwise Virginia is served from the butcheries in Charlottesville. Philadelphia serving the mid-Atlantic states. Very little beer, only Pittsburgh, but Pittsburgh is evenly nicely placed in the middle, so it serves both zones, and then of course the mid-Atlantic state having a lot of extra here, so that Pittsburgh is in de facto only serving Virginia, because these other cities here in the mid-Atlantic are already being served or producing themselves. But putting on some of the excess, a lot of excess beer, so then some of it can be put on here in New York, which are now having both the New England zone and also being a redistribution hub for the Atlantic Express. Sugar, lots of sugar going on, so there wasn't any particular need for a warehouse. The sugar being nicely placed in between the mid-Atlantic states and Virginia. And then one extra here on to serve the Atlantic Express, and also the Atlantic Express going through this nice old Norris estate, which have been naturally raised into producing 16 wagons a week. Lots of weaveries down south, so that was absolutely no problem, no need for warehouses. Milk, an extra milk resource, have been included here, so that it can serve for the southern states, this mid-Atlantic milk resource, serving all of this, while this middle zone New England milk is serving the rest. See, I haven't really opened up here. Yes, because there is actually one more milk. So then, since this resource, this Quebec zone, have its own milk, it would be perhaps beneficial to have a dairy factory like here in Montreal. The vegetables, lots of vegetables up north, serving here. Another one in the middle, so that the northern states are taken nicely care of. Down south, only one, so we bought that one as well. We want to bump that up further, but not right now, because there isn't demand quite yet. But soon all of these cities will grow pretty much simultaneously into becoming having demand for vegetables. Not so far into the future. And then it will be nice to have this already. Buy it cheaply before you connect to it, and then as soon as demand becomes great, pop it up really good. Fruit here, southern fruits going to Virginia, and then lots of fruit here up north, using this old fruit resource to serve this Atlantic Express, and then this middle in between states along the river here, that they get resources from both sides. And then further on, there will be building up factories, but factories, they just try to, and the computer does this as well, try to distribute them more or less evenly, so that there wouldn't be too much use for warehouses to distribute this. Wouldn't want to go through all of these. Most of these have much less production than there is demand. So there isn't so much need to have warehouses to distribute these resources, because they would be only able to serve the closest cities anyway. In the beginning of the game, there isn't a need for this at all, but then suddenly, say with cheese, for example, demand pumps up all over. But at this level, it's not so difficult to grow the cities. One only need the basic resources. Further on in the game, there will be more emphasis on growing industries properly. And salt, there's no demand for salt down here yet, so we haven't done anything in particular to change that. This salt resources pretty much how they have been through most of the game, as we have built up this nice little empire. So then, for our last mission objective, we see that we're going to transport passengers from Washington to Buffalo. See how this goes. There is certainly a connection now to Buffalo, but it goes through Pittsburgh, and that doesn't really count. We have to go on this. Washington is connected to the Virginia zone, and then Buffalo belongs to the Mid-Atlantic state zone, and then they have to change here, so that wouldn't count. So next thing we're going to do is to build a direct line up here, wait for Virginia to grow a bit. It will come on very nicely, and then the next city that is going to have 120,000 citizens, Albany having already, New York, and then I think Syracuse will be next in line, having a little bit of a problem due to some hard factories to feed. But other than that, it will come on nicely, and then we will be able to complete this chapter. So then we made for this last little line here, not particularly profitable, perhaps, or it will be due to all of this cities. It doesn't only transport passengers from Washington to Buffalo, but a lot of other cities, passengers from other places would go down to Buffalo and then change trains into going on this express line. But there isn't so much in between here. It's sort of a desolate wilderness in the middle of the middle states, the mid-Atlantic states. So that this is mostly built for achieving the mission objective, which will be achieved very soon now. But then we don't have to pay so much heed to making money now. Now we can spend our money on achieving the mission objectives as fast as possible. We don't make any points from being rich in Railway Empire, but see how we did. Pretty decent score. Still got some time left to complete the optional tasks, but as soon as we do that, we're going to get not too bad of a placing. See that there are a lot of people that are doing better than this, having more focus on the mission objectives, but still to have a great income and be able to properly utilize the warehouses and to have a structured approach into building these zones. I think that is a great way of playing the game, making it fun and somehow realistic in many ways. So I guess that pretty much sums it all up, and one can feel free to like and subscribe, leave some comments if you're wondering about anything, and then I hope to see you next time, and goodbye.